my name is Liz Dawn. I've been running Celebrate Your Life events for 30 years.
Wow.
And we do all these fabulous conferences and retreats and summits and all these like fun events and programs. We also do some online programs as well. But our biggest jam is really doing things in the space and creating people coming together. What's been up for you lately in terms of the world, in terms of the globe, in terms of your teachings, and what is like your biggest like jam right now in terms of what you want to share with people?
You know, Liz, it's no secret. It's not business as usual in the world. People write to me every day and they think, you know, the world is coming apart at the seams. It's falling apart. These are terms that people use. And I'm in awe when I hear it, but I'm not surprised. And the reason I'm not surprised is the reason we're doing this event. We are living this rare and precious moment, this little window of time in human history, unlike any window I am aware of. I'm in my 70s now. I've never seen this. And I see no evidence in 5,000 years of recorded human history. Liz, what's happening right now is we're living a convergence of cycles that we rarely talk about in our society. And we're talking about everything from big cosmic cycles to astronomical cycles to cycles of economy. Economic cycles are converging. Climate cycles are converging. Social cycles, political cycles, economic cycles, as I said. And interestingly, conflict cycles. When I did a talk at the UN and I mentioned conflict cycles, the UN folks said, what do you mean? Doesn't conflict just happen when it happens? And it certainly can. But there are specific 17.5-year conflict cycles, 56-year conflict cycles. All of these things are converging. And what that means to us, Liz, is that the world that we used to know no longer exists. We're moving into a new world, yet we are attempting to navigate the new world through the thinking of the world of the past. And this is where the disconnect comes in. So what's up for me is new ways of thinking about ourselves and our relationship to the world. And AI certainly is driving a big part of that conversation, because this extraordinary technology of AI has been dumped into our laps with no guidelines, no guardrails, and no really clear understandings of what it means in our lives and what it can and cannot do. And we are now navigating that as my team is navigating that with our community. I'm a tech guy, and I love tech, and I'm not anti-AI. However, what the studies are clearly showing is that when we give away our creative powers, our powers of imagination, creativity, innovation, when we give those powers away to AI, we lose something within ourselves. And it's not my imagination. You know, this is now December of 2025, February of this year, so less than a year ago, University of Toronto came out with a peer-reviewed study showing that the chronic use of artificial intelligence for creative endeavors actually diminishes our creative capacities. We not only are not helped, but we lose our ability to innovate, to imagine, to create, because the part of our brain that does that needs to be constantly used. When we delegate our creative capacity to a machine, whether we're talking about artwork or whether we're talking about writing the lyrics to a song, writing the music to a song, writing a new book, all of that is possible, certainly through AI right now. What is the price that we pay for that? Well, what the study is showing is that we actually begin to lose our ability to imagine and to innovate and to create. And the term that they use, this is very interesting. When we do it a lot, all of our creations become vanilla, is the term that they use. In other words, all the lyrics for all the songs start to sound the same. The music starts to sound the same. The artwork starts to look the same. And we know that because You can go on YouTube, you can look at the thumbnails on YouTube, and you know what's AI generated and what's not, because it all has this look. And I just had this conversation a few moments ago on another interview. I'm a musician when I'm not doing what I'm doing now. And
yes, you are. And you're a fabulous musician.
Well, thank you. That's my plan B. If this whole gig doesn't work out, Liz, that's my plan B. No, just kidding.
So I want everybody to know that Gregg has been a spiritual teacher and speaker since the 90s, probably the 80s, I would think. So
1986 was my first public talk.
That is so cool.
It was at the Open Door Bookstore in Denver, Colorado. If anybody knows,
I totally remember that.
Where that is. So, but here's the thing: it's the imperfections in the music, the imperfections in the vocalization, the imperfections in our art that appeal to us. When every drum beat is perfect, and every lyric and every tone, what made Johnny Cash so appealing, by all accounts, most people agree he was not a particularly good singer, but it was the imperfections and the honesty and the authenticity in his voice that reflected the suffering and the hurt and the pain in his life. That's what made him appealing, and others as well. And AI does not do that. So what the studies are showing is we lose a part of our humanness when we relegate it to the technology. And that is one example of what happens in our bodies when we give ourselves away to technology. If we give our cognitive abilities away to the technology, or we give our reproductive abilities away, or we give our immune response away to external technology, those abilities.
Do you believe like there's a balance?
Let me say this word. Those abilities will atrophy. They will decline and atrophy to the point where we will lose them in our lives. And when we lose them in our lifetime, Liz, then the next generation believes that we no longer need those abilities. They become a vestige of what we used to do as a species, and that's how you lose a species. And that's what's up for me right now. The AI is driving this conversation. I apologize for interrupting.
No. I apologize for interrupting you. So do you believe that there's a healthy balance in using AI? You know, everybody's using ChatGPT. That seems to be the thing. And then there's other AI too. So what do you feel is like the balance?
I do, Liz. And it's not so much about a balance. You know, we use the term balance often. What we really mean is harmony. We're not looking. People talk about, they want to balance between work and home. They don't really want to balance, because balance means perfectly equal. And when something is equal parts, and that's not what we want. We're looking for harmony between work and home. We're looking for harmony between our relationship with the AI in our lives. AI is an amazing technology. I actually was an AI programmer in the 1980s during the Cold War. At that time, we didn't call it AI, we called it machine intelligence. So I'm saying that to share that it's not new. Now, it certainly was not as sophisticated as what we see right now, but there are amazing applications. For example, there is the Journal of Complementary and Alternative Medicine. Ran an article where they are using AI to scour the world's databases for indigenous plants that have anti-carcinogenic properties.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and so AI can do that much faster than humans scouring through these databases. Why would you do that? Well, the answer is, once you have a database of anti-carcinogenic properties at your fingertips, now when a malignancy is presented, the AI can tailor a customized application for that malignancy only, without bombarding the entire body with, a generalized chemotherapy. What a beautiful, powerful application for AI. AI can simulate architecture, structural bridges and buildings and things like that. What AI cannot do is AI cannot reach into the field. And I know that there's some people out there that may have a different experience of what I'm saying. So let me say it and then I'll back it up. AI cannot reach into the field and tell us what our past lives are, or read the Akashic records, or open a fifth dimensional portal for the earth to ascend into. And the reason AI cannot do this, and I'm going to draw a distinction between AI and humans. The reason AI cannot do it is because there is no interface between the AI and the chips into that field. There has to be an interface that allows resonance with that field. That doesn't exist, at least now, with the AIs that are out there. However, when it comes to humans, what the peer-reviewed studies are showing is that human DNA, for example, this is a direct quote, a three-dimensional fractal antenna to the field, to the electromagnetic fields that surround us in our world. What that means, an antenna tunes to a field, a fractal antenna tunes to many aspects of the field across a broad spectrum of information. We are tuned to that field, and it's a two-way conversation. The field's communicating with us through the DNA, and we with the field. Here's what gets really interesting, Liz, is that our emotions change the shape of the DNA. And that means our emotions change the shape of the antenna to determine what we are tuning into. The way we feel determines what we have access to in the field. AI cannot do that. AI does not have that interface and that capability. So this is one of the aspects. Yeah, it's one of the aspects. I think we have a delay, and I just spoke over you, and I apologize.
No, go ahead. Same.
Yeah, well, so this is the whole point of the program that we're doing. In 2023, Bruce Lipton, Sue Morter, Anita Morjani, and I, we are all dear friends. And we looked at the world and what was happening, and we didn't know what was coming down the pike with certainty. What we did know is that we will need our bodies in ways that we are rarely invited to think of our bodies. We need our bodies to navigate the changes of the world. When we give our power away to the technology, we lose our ability to navigate the world changes in a healthy way. When you give away your body to a computer chip in the brain, or AI for your creative endeavors, chemicals in the blood, RFID chips under the skin, nanosensors in the body, that technology, is it fast? Yes. Is it efficient? Yes. However, it locks us in to one way of being in the world because the AI is not dynamic. Our cell membranes, our neurons, our DNA are dynamic, where they will shift in response to our perceptions. This is what epigenetics is all about. They shift in response to the way we think of ourselves in the world. So we have come together to create four very, very different perspectives that all lead us to the same place. A deep appreciation for our humanness and concrete, tangible, applicable skills that we can teach. And we've spent our lifetimes developing these techniques so that we can teach them in a matter of hours over a course of 4 days to help people apply their humanness to become the best version of themselves, rather than feeling powerless, that they need something outside of themselves to be the best version of themselves. It's fun feeling empowered. We live in a world where we've been led to believe that we are a flawed form of life and that we are victims of a world that we have no control and no power over, bodies that we have no power and control over. And when we begin to see, and it's not our opinions, this is the best science, peer-reviewed science, it simply isn't being carried in the mainstream. I just finished an interview in Australia, and we were having a portion of this conversation, and the interviewer asked me, he said, how come we're not seeing this in my kids' textbooks? And that's the whole point. The best science, the real scientists know what we're talking about. Pop scientists that you see on network news are generally uninformed. They are perpetuating an old model. It's called the standard model of human evolution, the standard model of the universe, where everything is separate from everything else, and we are powerless victims in our world. When we begin to learn the potential that we have within us through 7 epigenetic triggers: thought, feeling, emotion, breath, nutrition, movement, and focus. These are the core principles of our most ancient and cherished indigenous and spiritual traditions. So when we begin to learn the combinations of how we use those to awaken this extraordinary potential inside of us, all of a sudden the world looks less fearful, and that can be fun. That's where the fun comes from.
When you feel more, when I feel more empowered, I'm in my whole self, in my true self, that when I'm out there in the world, I feel so much stronger. And I know that's what being together in person does for us. I know that being with our spiritual community, with our soul tribe, whatever name you use for it, being together just supports that.
Well, it does, Liz. But and I want to emphasize, it's not a false sense of support. What we're doing is hundreds of us are in this event are coming together to reinforce what it is that we're learning through the best science of the modern world and newly discovered and newly translated texts from our ancestors that didn't know the science, but they definitely understood how to awaken these principles in the human body. And that's why they were persecuted. That's why the texts were buried and lost for thousands of years. And so you put all that together, and it is fun because it's more about remembering. There's a feeling, and many teachers out there will perpetuate a belief that you have to work to achieve this understanding of yourself, when in truth, when you take away the lies and you take away the false programming, all that's left is what's true, and all that's left is our human divinity. And this is really what we're talking about. These are expressions: imagination, creativity, innovation, empathy, sympathy, love, forgiveness, healing are all expressions of human divinity. And we already have them. So this is more about remembering the potential that lives within us and recognizing the veils of misinformation and disinformation and indoctrination and programming. When you have the reason to let those go, all that's left is what's true. And that is a deep memory, and that can be a lot of fun as well.